Hello friends, welcome back. Today I'm in Luminar Neo and I'm going to take a flat boring sky and show you how you can really make it pop with just a couple of simple moves. Now I'm going to use a tool that I think most people either are afraid of or don't use or skip over. I'm going to show you why that's a mistake and how you can get pro level results without really a lot of effort and how easy and powerful this tool is. Let's get into it. I started with this photo here that's unedited, and then after two simple tools, which was develop raw and super contrast, I got to that. So started there and I'm currently here. And this is what I'm talking about. You have these, especially in landscapes, if you get these beautiful cloudy skies, you can really amp up the drama, but people are missing a way to do that that I think is so easy and so powerful. And we're going to walk through that. Now for me, one way to play up the drama, and in fact, the main way that I like to play up the drama is adjusting the light. Now, light in this sky really has a lot of variance in it if you look at it. There's some dark clouds over here, there's some bright spots here and up in here. There's other clouds that are kind of sticking out as kind of being slightly dark. Well, there's a tool that's incredibly useful to isolate those different tonal areas. And if you're not using it, you're missing out. And that tool is a luminosity mask. So I'm going to go into develop and I'm going to go into masking and luminosity mask. Now, all this is a mask based on light values. For years, honestly, I avoided these in other apps because I was intimidated. I thought I was going to blow up my computer or just mess something up, and you're not. It's easy, it's really powerful, and it's a pro-level tool that gives you incredible control. Now, I won't dive into every aspect of luminosity masks, but this band here represents the spectrum of light. On the left side, you get the darker parts, the shadows, and on the right-hand side, you get the brighter stuff or the highlights. And you can grab this end and start condensing the mask or compressing the mask in order for it to target certain tonal areas. That's what it's currently doing. You can also move it around to make adjustments to better fit whatever it is you're trying to adjust. So what I want to do is accentuate some of the dark parts and some of the light parts. That's why luminosity masks are perfect, because I can go isolate some of the darker stuff and then do it again with the lighter stuff, and that's what we'll be doing here. Now keep in mind the red overlay is just showing me visually what my mask is currently covering. I'm kind of in the upper mid-tones here, and then as I go to the left, you can see I start getting into more of the shadows. That's that far left side. And if I go all the way to the right, I get into the highlights, which is the much brighter stuff, and there's less of that in this photo because of the tones that are present. What I want to do is compress this a little bit and work on these darker tones. So maybe some of those areas, but here's where you get a lot of control with luminosity mask, and that is grabbing these little triangles. All this does is start to feather the edges. You see how it starts to blend that edge better into the rest of the photo? If I don't use it at all, I get a pretty abrupt edge. That doesn't look good when you're adjusting light because any fall off in light is immediate. Whereas if you take this triangle and drag it even just a little bit, you start to blend that edge so that when you do change the light value in that masked area, the edges bleed or blend more gently and transition more smoothly into the other parts of the photo that are not being impacted. So that's what I'm doing here. And that's why these little triangles are incredibly, incredibly important. Now I'm just shifting a little bit more left to get a little bit more of that shadow. I've got my luminosity mask about where I want it to be. And so I'm going to go over to adjustments, and all I'm going to do is drop exposure. You can see what's happening here as I bring this down, starting to get darker tones in some of these clouds, right? So it's giving me a bit more drama. Now I want to be careful. I don't want to go too far, and you do need to experiment and be kind of gentle in both the feathering that we did a minute ago, but also in the extent to which you're changing these tonal values. You just don't want something to look completely unnatural. But if you look at the before and after, massive, massive difference. Now, I'm looking at the sky. It's also impacting the surf. We're going to adjust that in just a second. So sky before and sky after, a lot more drama. I just think that looks kind of fantastic. I'm going to reduce that a little bit more, so a little over half a stop. But if you take the before and the after, big, big difference. As I said, I don't like what it's doing in the sand. So here's a key tip in masking in Luminar. Even though I've already applied the luminosity mask, I can go click on masking and go to brush and get the eraser, and then I can go erase it with a bigger brush from the sand. And that's what I want to do. So you can stack these masks in Luminar and it gives you better control. So now I got that reduction in exposure out of the sand, which looks better. So before and after. Much better look in the sky in terms of drama. So I'm done with that. Now I've closed develop. I'm going to open it again because I want to add a little bit into the brighter spots. And again, this is where luminosity masks come into play. So open the masking menu, luminosity mask, and I'm going to compress this into some of the really brighter parts and some of these other tonal areas that are a little bit brighter in the sky. So it's a little bit further to the right than it was last time. And every photo is different. So it just takes a little experimentation, moving these things around until you feel like you have it about where you want it. And again, I always play with the feathering. I like a big feathering because it gives that smoother transition over a greater area. Therefore, your blend is a little bit more gradual. So now that I've got that set, I'm going to go to adjustments and I'm just going to go slightly brighter. And as I go slightly brighter, I'm accentuating the difference between the dark and the bright. I'm adding contrast. That's all I'm really doing, but I'm doing it with the luminosity mask because it gives me more control over specific areas. If I just took the entire sky and dragged the contrast, I wouldn't have very much control. This gives me more finite control. And so if you look at the before and the after of the brightening, I'm now getting that brightness coming through, but also that darkness that's underneath. So if you look at the entire before and after just of the sky, before, pretty flat overall. Even though it's cloudy and dramatic, it's a fairly flat photo. And that's after using Develop Raw and Super Contrast already on the entire image. But that's the before, and that's the after. You can see that this is a massive, massive difference. Now there's some additional things that you can do. I could go back into my original use of Develop, which is for the dark spots, right? So if you look at the before and the after, and this is where you stack additional edits. I might come in and take that temperature down a little bit, add a little bit of blue there to create some additional drama. Depending on what the sky looks like, this is not a good example, but you might come in the bright parts and add some warmth. I'll show you that here, but I don't think it'll look good on this photo because that yellow isn't really going to go that well. But the darker colors that I added, the darker tones down here, giving them a little bit of blue, plays in a little bit more to that drama. So you can stack additional things, not just exposure. But if you look at the before and the after, massive, massive difference in the sky on a tool that I think is overlooked and skipped quite a bit. And I think don't sleep on luminosity masks if you want to impact the sky. It is the best tool to do that. It gives you so much control. Now, this is not a complete edit. There's plenty of other things I would do. Maybe I'd take a linear gradient, come in, make some adjustments to the surf, and drag that exposure down, maybe bump up a little bit of contrast there as well, just to create a little bit more drama overall in the photo. Maybe not that much of an exposure drop. And then I'd probably do some color work. But if you look at that sky before and after, luminosity mask, super easy, super powerful, incredible amount of control. Gave me so much control over that sky, allowed me to create the drama that I wanted with just one simple tool. That's how this one works, my friends. Let me know if you have any questions, leave comments down below. Get my free ebook about Luminar Neo editing at the link below. And I'll see you soon, my friends. Take care, and until next time, adios.